woman is sitting on a rock at the edge of a small town in the hill country of ancient Israel. The sun is going down. The light is the color of old iron, and it is moving slowly across the stones beside her. She has been here since the barley harvest, and the barley harvest was 4 months ago. The wheat harvest came and went. The grape harvest came and went. The figs are ripening on the trees in the town below her, and she has not eaten a fig in 120 days. Above her the vultures are circling. She has not let them come down, not once, not in 4 months. By day she drives them off with stones, and with the bones of her arms. By night she fights the jackals with a piece of sackcloth, and the strength of a woman who has nothing left to lose. The people in the town below can see her from their doorways. They have stopped looking. They know her. Some of them used to bring her bread when this began, but she would not eat in their presence. She does not weep where strangers can see her. The grief is private. The vigil is not. The smell carries on the wind when the wind turns wrong, and the children have stopped asking questions about it. She has 2 sons. They are on the ground behind her. They have been dead since spring. She will not bury them. She will not let anything else touch them. She has not gone home. She has not eaten a proper meal. She has not slept under a roof. She has been on this rock through the worst summer in living memory, and she is still on it now, and she is waiting for one thing. She is waiting for a man to come. She is waiting for one man to hear about her, and to ride out from his palace, and to do what should have been done 120 days ago. That man is a king. His name is David, and he does not know yet. The woman on the rock is one of them, one of the praying mothers of the Bible. You can name 2, maybe 3. Mary, Hannah. If you grew up in a church that taught the Old Testament, maybe the woman at the foot of Jesus with the demon-possessed daughter, though you may not remember her either. There are at least 8. Their prayers changed the line of kings. Their prayers ended famines. Their prayers shaped the lineage of the Messiah himself. Here is what most people miss. Almost none of them prayed the way you were taught to pray. They did not pray in a quiet room with their hands folded. They prayed on the run. They prayed in tears. They prayed with accusations in their mouths. They prayed at the door of a tent with their lips moving and no sound coming out. They prayed at the foot of a stranger on a dusty road. They prayed on a rock at the edge of a city alone for 150 days, and every one of them was heard. This is not a story about good mothers. This is not a story about famous mothers. This is not a story about easy prayers. This is a story about mothers whose grief was so loud that heaven leaned down to listen. By the end of this video, you will know their names. You will hear what they actually said in Hebrew and in Greek in the original words the rabbis copied for 2,000 years, and the apostles wrote in the margins of their letters. You will watch a wealthy Gentile widow scream at a prophet of God in her own house and get her son back. You will watch a teenage girl from a nowhere town in Galilee sing a song that the church has been singing every evening for 1,600 years. You will hear about a woman whose prayer Jesus himself called great, and there are only 2 people in the 4 Gospels he ever said that to. And you will meet the woman on the rock, the one whose name has been buried under 3,000 years of silence, the one whose vigil broke a curse over an entire kingdom, the one whose story almost nobody has ever preached to you. We start with the first one, the oldest one in the Bible, a woman who could not have children for 20 years, and who, when she finally could, walked straight to an altar and asked God a question that no polite person should ask out loud. Her name is Rebecca. And the question she asked is one most mothers will ask in some form at least once in their lives. The praying mothers of the Bible do not begin in temples. They begin in tents. The first praying mother in the Bible does not show up where you would expect. She does not show up in a temple. She does not show up at an altar. She shows up doubled over somewhere in a tent in the desert, asking God a question that should not be asked out loud. Her name is Rebecca. She is the wife of Isaac, and for 20 years she could not have a child. Then she did, twins, and from the day she felt them, something was wrong. The babies inside her were not just moving, they were fighting, striking, pushing against each other in a way that made her physically afraid. And in the book of Genesis, in the 25th chapter, you can read what she said. It is one short line in English and one short line in Hebrew, and it is the first prayer of a mother recorded in Scripture. She said, "If it be so, why am I thus?" Read it slowly. She is not asking for healing. She is not asking for relief. She is asking, in the most desperate language a person can use, "Why am I even alive?" And then the verse says something easy to miss. It says she went to inquire of the Lord. She did not whisper from her bed. She went, she got up. She traveled to wherever an altar was, and she demanded an answer from God. And God answered her. He told her 2 nations were inside her body. He told her the older would serve the younger. He told her that she was carrying the future of 2 peoples, and that nothing about it would be quiet. This is the first praying mother in the Bible, and she sets the pattern. The praying mothers ask. They do not whisper. They ask, but it gets stranger. The next mother is not even an Israelite. She is a widow in a town called Zarephath on the coast of what is now Lebanon. The drought has lasted 3 years. Her husband is dead. Her food is gone. She has a handful of flour and a few drops of oil. She is gathering sticks to bake one last meal for herself and her son, so that they can eat it together one final time before their food runs out completely. A man named Elijah walks up to her and asks for water, and then for bread. She tells him the truth. "I have nothing but a handful of flour and a little oil in a jar." He tells her to feed him first. She does, and the jar of flour does not run out, and the cruse of oil does not fail. For weeks, for months, until the rains come back to Israel. And then her son dies anyway. He gets sick. He stops breathing. And the mother, this Gentile widow, whose name the Bible never even bothered to record, turns on Elijah with the rawest accusation in the Old Testament. "What have I to do with thee, O thou man of God? Art thou come unto me to call my sin to remembrance, and to slay my son?" That is not a polite prayer. That is a mother screaming at a prophet of God in her own house. And Elijah does not rebuke her. He takes the boy upstairs. He stretches himself over the body 3 times, and the boy lives. She was not a good woman by anyone's measure. She was a Sidonian. She worshipped Baal before that morning. But she got loud with God, and God moved. The third mother in Act 1 is the one most of you have heard of. But you have not heard her the way Scripture actually tells it. Her name is Hannah. Every year she walks from her home in the hill country to a place called Shiloh, where the Ark of the Covenant is kept inside a tent. Every year she walks with her husband Elkanah and his other wife, a woman named Peninnah. And every year Peninnah taunts her because Peninnah has children and Hannah does not. This year Hannah does not eat. She walks straight to the doorway of the temple, and she begins to pray. The Hebrew word the Bible uses for what she does next is siach. It does not mean prayer. It means lament. It means the sound a person makes when there are no more polite words left. Her lips are moving. Her body is shaking. But no sound is coming out. The old priest Eli is sitting by the door. He looks at her. He thinks she is drunk. He tells her to put away her wine. She tells him she has no wine. She tells him she has been pouring out her soul. And Eli, to his credit, blesses her. She goes home. She conceives. She names the boy Samuel, which means asked of God. And the moment he is weaned, she walks him back to that same tent at Shiloh, and she hands him over to the priest she once thought was insulting her. She gives him up, the son she begged for the rest of his life. Pay attention to this. The rabbis read this story for 1,000 years and built an entire theology of prayer out of it. The Mishnah. In the tractate, Barakot says this from Hannah. We learn 6 laws of prayer from the woman Eli thought was drunk. Not from a priest, not from a king, from her. And 1,000 years later, in a hill town in Galilee, a teenage girl named Mary will sing a song to her cousin Elizabeth. My soul doth magnify the Lord. If you read it next to Hannah's prayer in 1 Samuel chapter 2, you will see something that should not be possible. Mary is quoting Hannah, almost line by line. The chain of praying mothers does not break. It tightens. If you are with me this far, you are already thinking of someone, a mother, yours maybe, or the one you became, or the one you never had. Hit subscribe before we go further. There are 5 more mothers coming, and the last one is going to undo you. Here is the part nobody tells you. The praying mothers of the Bible do not pray the way you were taught to pray. They do not pray with their hands folded. They do not pray with their eyes closed in a quiet room. They pray on the run. They pray in tears. They pray with accusations in their mouths. They pray with their lips moving and no sound coming out. They pray on the way to a prophet's house, and they pray at the foot of a stranger, and they pray at the edge of a city alone on a rock. They get heard because they get loud, even the silent ones. There is a woman in the 2nd book of Kings who has no name. She is wealthy. She lives in a town called Shunem on the edge of a great plain in northern Israel. One day, she sees a prophet passing through her town, and she does something unusual. She builds him a room, a small upper room on the roof of her house, a bed, a table, a stool, a lamp. She tells her husband, "Let us make a little chamber for him." And they do. The prophet is Elisha, and after she has done this for him for years, he asks what he can do for her in return. She says nothing. She says she dwells among her own people. She is not asking for anything. But Elisha sees what she has not said. She has no child. Her husband is old. He tells her in 1 year she will hold a son. She does. The boy grows, and one morning he goes out to the field where his father is working with the reapers, and he grabs his head. He says, "My head, my head." They carry him home. He dies on his mother's lap by noon. She does not cry out. She does not tear her clothes. She carries him upstairs, and she lays him on the bed of the prophet, the bed she built, and she shuts the door. Then she saddles a donkey. She rides hard for Mount Carmel. Elisha sees her in the distance and sends his servant to ask if everything is well. She says it is well. 3 words. She does not stop riding. When she reaches him, she grabs his feet. The servant tries to push her off. Elisha says, "Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her, and the Lord hath hid it from me." He goes back with her, and the boy who died on her lap walks out of that upper room alive. She never says a single line of formal prayer in the entire chapter. But she said, "I will not leave thee." And she said it with her body, and heaven heard her. And this is where it gets remarkable. About 900 years later, in a region most Jews did not even enter, another mother is walking down a road behind a Jewish rabbi, screaming. She is from Tyre, or Sidon. The Bible calls her a Canaanite, which is the old word for the people. Israel was supposed to drive out of the land 1,000 years before. She is the wrong ethnicity, the wrong religion, the wrong everything. Her daughter is possessed. She has heard of a Galilean named Jesus who casts out demons. She walks up behind him on the road, and she will not stop crying out. The disciples are embarrassed. They ask him to send her away, and Jesus does something that does not sound like Jesus. He says, "I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel." She does not leave. She comes around in front of him. She kneels. The Greek word the Gospel of Matthew uses for what she did is proskuneo. It is the same word used of the wise men kneeling before the infant Jesus. It is the same word used of the Apostle John falling on his face before the throne of heaven. A mother fighting for her daughter took the posture of full worship. And then Jesus says the line that has scandalized readers for 2,000 years. "It is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to dogs." She does not flinch. She says truth. "Lord, yet the dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table." Hold that thought, because what happens next is one of the rarest moments in the four Gospels. Jesus stops walking. He looks at her, and he says, "O woman, great is thy faith." There are only two people in the entire Gospel record that Jesus says that to: a Roman centurion in Capernaum and a Gentile mother on the road to Tyre. He did not say it to the 12. He did not say it to his own family. He said it to the outsiders who would not let him pass without a yes. Her daughter was healed in that hour. And that brings us to the mother you have known about since you were a child. But you have not heard her told this way: Mary of Nazareth, not the manger, not the angel, the hill country 3 months later. In the house of her cousin Elizabeth, Mary is a teenager, maybe 14, maybe 15. She is pregnant out of wedlock in a culture that stones girls for that. She has walked roughly 80 miles from Galilee into Judah alone, or with a small group, to be with the only relative who would understand what was happening to her. And the moment Elizabeth sees her, Mary opens her mouth and a song comes out. If you read it in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, and then you read Hannah's prayer in the 2nd chapter of 1 Samuel, you cannot unsee what is happening. Mary is quoting Hannah, phrase by phrase. "He hath put down the mighty from their seats. He hath filled the hungry with good things." A teenage girl in a peasant village had memorized the prayer of an old woman from 1,000 years before. The first prayer of the New Covenant era was the song of an old mother sung by a young mother. The chain does not break, it tightens. Now watch what happens next. Go back, 3,000 years back, to Israel, to the reign of King David. There has been a famine for 3 years. Crops have failed. Children are dying. David has prayed and prayed and prayed, and the heavens have stayed closed. Finally, in desperation, he goes to the Lord and asks why. And the answer he gets is one that historians and theologians have argued over for 2.5 millennia. The Lord tells him, the famine is because of Saul. 40 years earlier, the previous king of Israel had broken a covenant. The Israelites had made a sworn oath to a people called the Gibeonites, a small Canaanite group living in the land. The oath said Israel would never harm them. Saul broke that oath. He killed Gibeonites. He tried to wipe them out, and the land was now under a covenant curse for the blood that had been spilled. David sends for the surviving Gibeonites. He asks them what it will take. They ask for 7 men, 7 descendants of Saul, to be hanged at Gibeah, the hometown of the king who had betrayed them, hanged before the Lord as a final reckoning. David agrees. He spares Jonathan's son, Mephibosheth, because of the covenant he had sworn to Jonathan, but the rest he hands over. 5 grandsons of Saul, the sons of Saul's daughter, Merab, and 2 more, 2 sons of one of Saul's concubines, a woman whose name appears in maybe 4 verses of the entire Bible. She was not a queen. She was not a prophetess. She was not even a wife. The Bible calls her a concubine, and then almost forgets her. But the God who counts every tear remembered her name. Her name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. Her 2 sons were called Armoni and Mephibosheth, the same name as Jonathan's son. There are 2 Mephibosheths in this story, and that is not a mistake. They take her sons, and they take the 5 grandsons of Saul, and they hang all 7 of them on a hill at Gibeah in the first days of the barley harvest. That is mid-April in the calendar of ancient Israel. The law of Moses commands that no body left on a tree shall remain past sunset. But these are state executions. They are political. They will be left, and Rizpah, the concubine, climbs the rock. She brings sackcloth. She spreads it on the stone, and she sits down beside the bodies of her sons and her sister-in-law's sons, and she does not leave. The vultures come. She drives them off with stones. The jackals come at night. She fights them in the dark with sackcloth, and whatever she can pick up from the ground. The sun rises and sets. The bodies decompose in the heat. The smell carries for miles, and she stays. April becomes May. May becomes June. The summer comes hard in the Judean hills, and she stays. June becomes July. July becomes August. August becomes September. The bodies are no longer bodies. They are bones held together by what the birds have not yet taken, and she stays. The Bible says she did not leave from the beginning of harvest until water dropped upon them out of heaven. That is the autumn rains. In the climate of ancient Israel, that is October. She was on the rock for at least 5 months. Some scholars argue 6. Word reaches David. The Hebrew historian Josephus, in the 7th book of his Antiquities of the Jews, confirms the story. He adds that David himself was so moved that he went personally, the king of Israel, to the rock to gather what was left of 7 men. He took down the bones. He sent for the bones of Saul and Jonathan, which had been buried in Jabesh Gilead for 40 years, and he had them dug up too. And then he gave all of them 7 hanged men, plus Saul, plus Jonathan, proper burial in the tomb of Kish, Saul's father. And the verse that closes the chapter is the one that should make you stop reading and sit still for a moment. And after that, God was entreated for the land. The famine ended. 3 years of curse broken in one season by a woman on a rock who would not leave. There is a Hebrew word for the kind of compassion God shows in moments like this. The word is rashamim. It means tender mercy, but the root of the word is rechem, and rechem means womb. In the Hebrew Bible, the compassion of God is described again and again in the language of motherhood. The love of a mother for what she has carried. A mother on a rock unlocked the compassion that was already written into the name of God. This is the rock. This is the woman. This is what it took for heaven to be entreated for an entire land. And nobody preaches her. The mother who will not leave is not a story that ended at the Old Testament. She is in every hospital corridor where the lights have been on for 3 nights. She is in every kitchen where the phone has not rung from the war. She is at every graveside where the grass keeps growing back over the same plot. She is in the woman named Monica in the 4th century, who prayed for her wild son Augustine for 19 years before he turned around, and whose bishop told her the son of these tears cannot be lost. You probably know a Monica. You might be a Monica. So before this video ends, 3 things to take with you. 1. God answers the prayers He inspires. And the prayer He inspires most often in mothers is not the polished one. It is the one with the trembling voice, the one with the lips moving and no sound coming out, the one that climbs a rock and refuses to come down. 2. If you have a praying mother, call her this week, not next week, this week. And if you are a praying mother yourself, your tears are louder in heaven than you think. 3. And this is the hardest one. Rizpah did not get her sons back. Hannah did not know her Samuel would be taken from her and dedicated to a temple she would only visit once a year. The Canaanite mother never saw Jesus again after that day on the road to Tyre. But heaven moved for each of them, and heaven is moving for someone somewhere right now because a mother will not stop. Which mother in this video hit you the hardest? Was it Hannah's silence, the Canaanite mother's comeback, or Rizpah on the rock? Tell me below. I read every comment, and the next time you see a woman who will not leave, look closely. You are looking at a prayer God is already on His way to answer.